great sign. I think I can almost see it sparking. Oh, yeah, it's sparking. Now this has got to be my favorite part of this thing. Check this out. Mustang. And look at this little chub guy compared to, you know, the Ford Mustang car. He's got a little bit more of a sleek look to him, but by all rights, it's probably fitting on this thing. Got the borescope out just to see what we can see. This might end our fun before we even begin. And that looks not great. See the cylinder wall over there? Looks rusty, as one would expect. Not great. And look at the cylinder wall. Man, oh man. The good news is the engine looks pretty clean inside. The bad news is that I can see rust on the valve spring retainers. So, you know, that's what you want to do. Now, I could pull the valve cover, but frankly, the more I see, the less I want to know what's going on under there. All right, this is just what the doctor ordered right here. Mustang Skidloader. So I got it for basically nothing. Obviously it doesn't run, so I'm hoping today we can get it going and we can flip it for a profit. So with that, let's jump in. Now this has got to be my favorite part of this thing. Check this out. Mustang. And look at this little chub guy compared to, you know, the Ford Mustang car. He's got a little bit more of a sleek look to him, but by all rights, it's probably fitting on this thing. Now it does, like I said, have a Ford industrial engine, and we're not starting off very good because the throttle is seized. I know it sat outside for a long time uncovered, and it's going to be a nightmare. And to add insult to injury, from sitting outside, it has a fair amount of water and rust in the everything. So we're going to see if we can get the engine to turn over, as we might be done before we even start. These governors on these things to control the RPM are like $600 to replace, and I'm really hoping that's not what's seized up, but it might be. And it's probably going to be a short trip if the engine has water in it, but I can't seem to find the dipstick or the dip. What is that thing called? The dipstick. Oh boy. Oh, there it is. Kind of, sort of. This thing's had the repaint at some point, probably to sell it off. Well, a little bit of water on the end. This thing's really hidden back here. Good grief. Some other weird things I noticed when I was looking at that is all the weird, I don't know what someone was doing with the fuel line. Something just suspicious. There's the mechanical fuel pump and there's nothing hooked to it, so I don't know. First things first here, we're going to throw a little bit of transmission fluid down the cylinders, because I just really don't know what condition the engine is in. Because frankly, if the engine's destroyed, I bought this thing for scrap and that's what I'm going to sell it for. A running skid loader, you know, at least $3,000. A non-running skid loader, you can't hardly get rid of them. So I've labeled the plug wires here with zip ties, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is the front of the engine there. You can see the fan, mostly because when I unhook these here to do what we're about to do, I don't want to have to try and refigure this out, because you can see here that it's pretty hard to get to the front of the engine, to rotate it over, find top dead center, and do all that because there's a radiator in the way. This is why non-running skid loaders are always so cheap, because they're so tight and compact. They're absolutely terrible to work on normally. Well, at least in this case. I'm working off the assumption that it ran before in this configuration. It's hard to say. Someone's probably tried to work on it. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't in the correct firing order sequence or something's weird, but we're just going to trust it for now. Now, of course, these plugs mount from the top, so all the debris and mouse poop and every other thing is going to try and fall in the cylinder when we remove the plug. Now, one of you guys on here actually turned me on to these guys, and this is a gross misuse of it. Is it going to work? There we go. I guess that works to blow everything out. Spray a little schlickum in there. Oop. It's probably not going to make a difference, but it just makes me feel better. These are some of the big old boys in here. 13/16. It's like 30 degrees in here, and anytime you smack your hand on something in Iowa, it hurts like, and I did it again. It sounds and feels very gritty, which is always a bad sign. Starting off strong here, none of the plugs are particularly rusty. One thing to note is that they're all seemingly brand new, which is always, I would say a bad sign, but I'm sure before someone unloaded this thing, they were trying to get it running on their own account. Got the borescope out just to see what we can see. This might end our fun before we even begin. And that looks not great. See the cylinder wall over there? Looks rusty, as one would expect. Not great. And look at the cylinder wall. Man, oh man. That's pretty typical of what you get with old industrial machinery, probably because it's sat outside, it's had a lot of moisture, and it goes for long stints of time without being used, and then if you live somewhere humid like Iowa, it just gets the best of stuff. So I don't know if it's going to run, frankly, but we're surely going to try. The cylinder walls are not good. Suffice it to say here, it would not be good to crank over this dry engine. The already not good cylinder walls would get even more not gooder, which is not what we want. So that's probably enough. And as is tradition, the battery is older than time itself here, but I'm just curious. I mean, look how crusty this thing is. Also, I don't know how you even get the battery out of here, but it's reading a solid 2 volts. So even though this is a 4-banger, I think we're going to need more than that to spin her over. See if we can't cut some of that corrosion down. I don't even know if I can get those cables off. Coca-Cola, it's handy for cleaning out your insides and cleaning up battery terminals. Can't say I'm extremely confident in our connection with the battery. I got them bit in as well as I can. We got another battery that's charged up, so what are the chances that the key actually works on this thing? I got the little push button guy. Hopefully we don't have to use it because the starter is down and all that menagerie of things, and not looking good. Oh, there we go. Oh. Right on the other Mustang. I'm going to sacrifice my favorite garage creeper for God and country here. Well, good news. I saved my garage creeper because it all went on the Mustang, so won't be needing that. Well, I guess the good news is those particular spots aren't going to rust now. Climb up in here and sit in the old mouse poop seat. Just kind of want to, I can't see the oil pressure gauge. Oh boy, who knows if any of this stuff even works here. Little switch must be the lights. Is it going to build oil pressure? That's the question. Looks like must be an electric oil pressure gauge. So when I'm cranking, it's like a Volkswagen, I gotta turn it off. So when I'm cranking here, everything's dead. Shut it off, and then the oil pressure reads. So it looks like it has oil pressure. I was subconsciously hoping that I'd find something definitively wrong and I could just call it a day, but I think that little Ford engine is gonna wanna run. It at least makes oil pressure. I don't know if it makes compression yet, but it spins over, so I think we're gonna give her a chance. And don't feel bad for this old clunker. It's just a little old 65 Mustang with a 4-speed, you know. No one wants that stuff. It should just take this to the scrapyard. This is clearly the more valuable item here today. I suppose the next thing here is spark. So I got the key on there, got the multimeter grounded. I just want to see, it should have power right now to the coil, and it does, about 6 volts, and it has a resistive lead right where my finger is hanging out in there. So I might bypass that. That's just a little low, but it should work. I'm not super thrilled about, oh, maybe. Well, moved a little bit. That's not a great sign. You know, that was pretty rough when I got it, and then I'll show you something here. You can see my floor, this nice little line that goes up over the roofs of the car, and look what it lines up with. Yeah, the leaky roof. And look where that ended up, right above the carburetor. And you can tell I normally try and avoid this sort of thing. I don't park anything here, but a skid loader is not so easy to move when it's not running. So, you know, I've kind of added insult to injury and made my job a little bit harder since I've had this thing. Testing for spark here, I have removed plug wire number 1 and swapped it with the coil wire. That way, instead of, you know, firing once every 4 times, anytime a spark plug would fire, it's going to fire the spark plug, and it's just hooked up to a ground. Kind of here where I can see it. Now this is interesting. You can see it down there. I don't know if this is the right distributor. Is there any reason why a skid loader would have a vacuum advance? We'll roll it over here, see if she lights. And since it's a son of a gun to get to the starter there to hook up a lead, I'm gonna have to crank it from up in the cab, which thank goodness that works, but I won't be able to see the spark. So I got a little idea that we'll definitely know if we have spark or not. Oh boy. Man, I didn't think that through very good. I burned the tail right off of little chub guy here. Now he really looks like a nugget. But I've taken the number 1 plug wire here and hooked it back up to the cap. So now we're effectively testing the entire ignition system. So hopefully the cap and rotor aren't corroded, but at least it will spark from the points or whatever's in there. But ultimately the ignition, the distributor is just interrupting the ground to the coil. When that's interrupted, it discharges the spark. So in this case, all hooked up through the coil, it's going into the rotor, and the rotor is now distributing it to the appropriate spark plug. Not a great sign. I think I can almost see it sparking. Oh, yeah, it's sparking. So at this point, I think we can say the ignition system is good, which I'm glad because that cap was hard to get to. But at the same time, I was really hoping that was the reason this didn't run, because any other option is quite a bit worse to deal with. Unfortunately, the ignition's good in this case. I think before I throw the spark plugs in, I'm gonna go ahead and get a compression test on this thing. I'm just kind of concerned. Usually it's ignition or things like that, but this engine doesn't sound great cranking, and it was left for dead for a reason, and that would be one of the worst case scenarios for us. So to do a compression test, you got to have the throttle wide open, and that is really gummy still. I'm just going to let this marinate for a moment. Not convinced it's not the external part of the throttle shaft, given that it's been rained on right in that general jurisdiction quite a bit. The compression tester is plumbed in here to presumably the worst cylinder from what I saw in the bore scope. And then we have the please spin over very fast 1000 jump pack on it. So hopefully we see something that's over 120. That would be ideal. Especially because we put oil in the cylinder. So normally on a compression test, throwing some oil down the cylinder will boost the number. And you really don't want to see a big disparity between a dry cylinder and a oiled cylinder, but on a worn engine you will, but in this case it's already oiled, so if it's below 120 with oil in it, not going to be great. Well, to nobody's surprise, given the condition of that cylinder, it's not great. That looks like around 110 now. That is probably enough to run. Obviously this engine is what I would consider somewhat tired, but it's not going to have to do a lot of work around my property. One good thing is if it was much lower than this, I would say it has a valve train issue, but as far as is that what you want to see? Definitely not, especially with oil in the cylinder, because without oil, I bet you it's below 100. So, I don't know. I'm just gonna put the spark plugs back in and hope for the best. And if you think that I forgot to open the throttle, well, I didn't. Unfortunately, that was wide open throttle, and that is just the condition she's in, I suppose. Spark plugs are back on. I told you those little zip ties come in handy. 1, 2, 3, 4, so you don't get them all mixed up. I suppose I'm gonna throw some fire down her belly and just see what happens. That is a custom adapter there. I'm sure this isn't the right carburetor for this thing. All right, here goes nothing. Jump pack's on. Not a great sign. The good news is the engine looks pretty clean inside. The bad news is that I can see rust on the valve spring retainers. So, you know, that's what you want to do. Now, I could pull the valve cover, but frankly, the more I see, the less I want to know what's going on under there. This engine's going to need all the help it can get. When an engine's worn out, you really have to spin it pretty quick to get it to fire. And our starter is probably from the 1970s, so I can't really do anything about that. But I'm going to find my most stout battery that I have on the property and a couple of jump packs and then some actual gasoline, and we're gonna cross our fingers, because at this point, my friends, I'll tell you what, from doing this stuff for a long time, it's not looking great. Figured our jumper cables were probably holding us up here. I'm still not entirely sure how to get this battery out, but the cables thankfully are long enough that we can still figure something out. So we got our little Coca-Cola solution here. Let that do its thing. And I don't know what crimp code brown means, but generally code brown is never a good thing. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that we probably have at least a 79% chance, greater opportunity for success here. Battery cables, of course, are cleaned up on a good battery. We have the jump pack, and if it doesn't spin over faster now, well, we're not gonna be doing so great. Give her the bean dip here. I'm going to call that an improvement. At least tried to do something. So maybe I should fill the float bowl of the carburetor here. All right, here it goes. Well, I'm going to say it's doing something. It's at least igniting something in the cylinders there. So we'll take our choke completely off. I've unhooked from the governor. Ooh, check that out. The accelerator pump even works. On a positive note, the linkage on the carburetor is working good, so it must have been on the outside. It's all lubed up nice. That is the most ridiculous accelerator pump scenario. So roll on one. So close. Now normally in such times I can be right there where I can work the throttle, and I bet you it would light off. It is super close. It's definitely tired, but I think it will run. So I'm gonna have to, I might actually have to put the thing on the starter so I can do all of this from the engine bay. So it's hard to see because of this motor mount, but that white wire there is going to the back of the starter solenoid, and the starter is kind of back, and you can barely see it back in that jurisdiction. So not ideal to get to. All right, this is just what the doctor ordered right here. See if we can do this all with one hand. I'm gonna call that running. How about that? So I don't know if you'd call that functionally running, but I'm gonna call that, say that it runs, all right? I'm gonna get the heck out of here before I absolutely get myself asphyxiated, and the windstorm is about to blow down my building anyway, at which case this isn't gonna be an issue for me. Anyhow, so with that, let me go find something that I can make a fuel system with, so we can give this carburetor a chance, because I don't want to say it, I'm probably calling it early, but it's starting to look, the tide is turning. Now I think this will be just the place to procure a fuel system for our skid loader, because we've done something similar in the past right here. Now because the electrical system was completely foobar, the injectors, the ignition, nothing seemed to work, I got a little lawnmower carb on this thing, and then I modified a V8 distributor and combined it with an inline 6 distributor for this 2.4, I can't remember, 2.5 liter 4-banger. Anyway, it all works together concerningly well. So I'll fire it up here and give you a listen before we steal our fuel system. So I'm going to get her primed here, and I have the throttle pinned wide open on the carburetor, and basically I use the throttle on the throttle body itself to control the fuel flow. It's the most wrong thing that actually works. So we got it, we're going to want that in a second. We got it choked here, and so our little wire coming in. And then that is our ignition, so it's hot. And then this is our starter wire. And now, there she is. So obviously some pretty serious redneckery, but for now, I'm going to steal the fuel systems. It's going to work exceedingly well for our skid loader. There she is in all of her glory. Fuel tank, fuel pump, fuel filter, and fuel pressure regulator. And I think I'm going to take that fire extinguisher with me when I go. All right, we have a very ghetto arrangement here. Our fuel tank, fuel pump, fuel filter, another fuel pump, because that was just part of the line that I found, going up into the carburetor. So we'll just prime this thing up here. Now I got the key on, so let's roll it. Let me just move this very questionable air filter thing that's probably full of mouse poop anyway out of the way. Holy crap, it's actually doing it. I think the engine's a little tired. I don't know about you guys. Oh boy. It is a runner. She's got a smoking problem. A little bit of black lung action, I think. Just about out of fuel there. Get a look at the oil pressure. So it finally ran out of fuel here. It obviously does seem to run okay. We're going to want to get our governor linkage and things all hooked back up, assuming that works, which is a hard assumption. So I think the next step, I'm going to get all of the fuel system and everything squared away, so, and ignition and all that, so I can actually drive the thing. Wishful thinking, drive the thing if it'll move. So we've done a little bit of massaging here, especially on the seat bracket where the battery cables come up, and now I got the battery up here because I can't get I have to take so much apart to get the battery out that, I don't know, that seemed easier, question mark. Anyway, we got a retrofit gas tank with our pump and filter and regulator. It snakes through, and hopefully we're not gonna cut it off with the cylinder here, but that goes back into the carb for fundamentally a relatively proper fuel system. Locationally, not so good, but it is what it is. But boy, I don't want to take the exhaust off and the alternator to get that battery out. So I guess this is what we're doing. Not sure the proper way to get into this apparatus now. Maybe I'll just fall into it. I got a bad back. Oh God. That went somewhere it shouldn't have. We'll test our work here. So that's our fuel pump. Making pressure. That should be enough to fire. Got just enough room for my little feetsies down in here. So it should start from the key. It's got a throttle lever here. So accelerator pump. Here we go. Big surprise here that my battery cable connections aren't great. So let's try that again. She's a runner. Oh boy, just enough room for me to fit in here. Now, see if our bucket moves. Ooh, our governor isn't doing its job. Can we go forward? Well, it has some signs of wanting to move. Well, that wasn't in the plans. My ratchet strap for my gas tank got wrapped around my foot weird, and then the bucket started going up and I couldn't get it to disengage. So didn't do too much damage here, just some old scrap junk anyway, and that's really heavy. Doing a lot of the wrong things the right way here, but we're looking good. So I think I need to get all of these tractors out of the way. Unfortunately, I've used this one as a table. And this old girl hasn't run for quite some time. I stole the battery from our Ford tractor and threw it in it, put a little gas in it. Fuel's open. Pretty cold out today, 32 degrees. It's been a couple months since this thing ran, but like old tractors do, they always fire right up. Been looking for that chain for a long time, didn't realize it was in there. So I had to drag the thing in with the bucket, but Seems like it wants to move. The drive is kind of funky, but it could also just be cold. So see if I can't fall in here again. Now this is a super old school one where your foot pedals run the bucket, and then this is your drive. So this is turning one direction, this is turning the other. Full reverse, full forward kind of. So back on this pedal is bucket up. Forward is bucket down. This pedal, bucket up going back. Bucket down, that thing's a guillotine. I think our cylinders are a little leaky. So let's see if we can't pull on out of here. Give her all the throttle she's got. Something wrong with this drive. Definitely something wrong with this drive on the side. Every time I try and give it enough throttle, it's got some serious drag. That's our one that had water in it. All we got to do is get up there, and then we can really work on the thing. Fighting pretty good to get up this hill. If I give it any extra throttle, oh, you're almost there. Hold it together. Ah, well, works better if your fuel pump's running. So that was just in the nick of time. That's one way to shut her down. And I really never thought to look here at the hours because I just thought this thing was a pile of junk, but it really doesn't have, for a skid loader, a lot of hours on it whatsoever. And you can hear it running when I turn the key on, so I know it's adding that up, and it is working. I wouldn't be at all surprised if those are the actual hours. I mean, the engine, the oil pressure and everything's pretty good. I think it's sat around a lot, and that's because this is like a weird sized skid loader, so probably came from someone's farm, sat outside, and a lot of the damage was done. And really looking at the skiddy here in the light, it doesn't really seem like it's ever been repainted actually. And I know it's a pretty old unit, so it probably just wasn't used a whole lot, spent most of its time sitting, which as you saw doesn't do the engine any favors. So I'm gonna have to look into this because I noticed the fluid. Now it's got water in this side of the drive, but it's red, and I assume there's supposed to be gear oil or 1540 down in the drives here, and this drive over here is clean. But again, that red color, I'm just not familiar with skid loaders. I've never actually owned one here, so I'm not sure what's going on with this red fluid. Maybe you guys can tell me. Well, all right, my friends, I think that's going to do it for me today. I do have a request for you guys that if you have any info about the skid loader, the final drives, what's going on with the red fluid, the hydraulic oil, or anything that you think that I should know, I would be forever indebted to you if you would share that info with me and just give me a rundown. I've never owned a skid loader that's legitimate before. This one's still small, but it's fairly legitimate, I'd say, as far as a skid loader goes. So if there's anything I should watch out for or things I should do, because I'm going to try and work it over here, and, you know, maybe I'll keep it and not sell it if it turns out to be pretty good, which I don't know. It's showing some pretty good signs. That's what I think.